The Importance of Balance Between Social Rank and Love, a presentation on the novel Emma by Jane Austen. The protagonist Emma says that there may be 100 different ways of being in love, and this is quite true in the story. Throughout the course of the novel, this quote is enforced again and again through the examples of distinct couples, their social ranks, and whether or not they are in love. The story revolves around the protagonist, Emma, and her different experiences with couples of varying social ranks, some successful and some unsuccessful. Jane Austen ultimately conveys her theme at the end of the story through the multiple couples of contrasting social ranks and situations. The story takes place in 19th century England, thus social rank was extremely important. The class of family you were born into affected everything, from your role in society to who you were deemed fit to marry. However, love also played a very important role. Using the artistic elements of repetition and variety and unity in her novel Emma, Jane Austen reinforces her theme that an ideal match in 19th century England balanced social status and love. To begin, the two unsuccessful matches that were made in the story. First, Mr. and Mrs. Elton. Mr. Elton is a very well-known man in the Highbury community. As the novel mentions, he does have a fair amount of wealth. Mr. Elton's situation was most suitable, quite the gentleman himself and without low connections. At the beginning of the story, he is in love with Emma, but quickly abandons that quest after she turns him down. He then turns to Augusta Hawkins and marries her. It is made known that she has more wealth than he does. Augusta Hawkins, Mrs. Elton, was in possession of an independent fortune of so many thousands as could be called tens. This then results in a sense of superiority, and the two do not do well. Mrs. Elton is overwhelming and has a high sense of self-importance. Though they stay married, the two are very clearly a poor trait. After meeting Mrs. Elton, Emma says her, Mrs. Elton, society would certainly do Mr. Elton no good. Moreover, the two do not love each other, so they are not able to experience an ideal marriage because they are not balanced in social status or love. Moving on to Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill. This match was quite a shock to most people because Frank and Jane are so very different that most people did not even consider the two becoming romantically involved. So it was a great surprise when everyone found out. Jane Fairfax was an orphan, growing up with no advantages of connection or improvement. Contrasted to Jane, Frank comes from a wealthy family and is in no want of money. They kept their engagement a secret because Frank's aunt, who he lives with, never would have accepted Jane as a daughter-in-law, given her social status. Once his aunt passes away, they tell everyone. Naturally, this was a great revelation, and though people accepted it in the end, this pair is not accepted in many people's eyes because of the gap between their social ranks. As Mr. Knightley, our normative character, speaks of their engagement, saying, "Assured of the love of such a woman, the disinterested love for Jane Fairfax's character vouches for her disinterestedness. Everything is in his favor. Equality of situation, as far as regards society, and all the habits and manners that are important, equality in every point but one." Thus, here he is saying that she loves him, yes, yet her social rank is not equal to his, and this is where equality in every point but one is, as he says. This is unfortunate because the two do love each other, so much so that they are willing to keep their engagement a secret for such a long time from so many people. However, they are of very different social ranks, resulting in them not being able to be seen as acceptable in society's eyes. So they do not have the true balance of social status and love. They only have love. Thus, one aspect of their match is unsuccessful and leads them to experience great pain. Now come the three successful matches that did balance the elements of social rank and love. First, Mr. and Mrs. Weston. Mr. and Mrs. Weston are both well-liked and people of good character. Mr. Weston's wife died many years ago, and Mrs. Weston, previously called Miss Taylor, had never married. Neither of them are of great wealth, but they are not poor either. At the close of the novel, they do end up very happy, and everyone is overjoyed at their marriage. Mr. Knightley is talking of the event of their marriage to Emma's father, Mr. Woodhouse, and says, "She knows how much the marriage is to Miss Taylor's advantage. She knows how very acceptable it must be, at Miss Taylor's time of life, to be settled in a home of her own, and how important to her to be secure of a comfortable provision. Every friend of Miss Taylor must be glad to have her so happily married." Given that neither is very rich nor very poor, these two work very well together. They do also care a great deal for each other, so their match is a successful one. The second couple is Harriet Smith and Robert Martin. Both Harriet Smith and Robert Martin come from the lower classes. We discover that Harriet's lineage is unknown and that she is of no great societal position. Similarly, with Robert Martin, it gives a long account of how he is simply a farmer and has no great connections or wealth. Thus, the two are of the same social rank. Emma tries setting Harriet up with other characters in the story, but they all ultimately fail because the men simply will not marry someone of Harriet's rank. Emma is against Robert and Harriet marrying in the beginning because he is a farmer and she feels Harriet would be dissatisfied with him. However, in the end, the two do marry, and Harriet is much happier. Mr. Knightley tells Emma of their engagement and expresses his joy over it. Later, it conveys how Emma feels on the subject. She, Emma, had no doubt of Harriet's happiness. With him and in the home he offered, there would be hope for more, of security, stability, and improvement. She would be respectable and happy, and Emma admitted her to be the happiest creature in the world. The two are in love and decide to marry. Emma attended Harriet to church and saw her hand bestowed on Robert Martin with so complete satisfaction. The two are a good match because neither of them come from money nor advantages in society. Thus, one is not superior to the other. Moreover, they do love each other. Robert loves Harriet from the beginning of the story, and Harriet loves him in the end. As a result, these two have an ideal marriage because they are of the same social rank and are in love. Lastly, come the two main characters of the story, Emma and Mr. Knightley. These two people are very different, yet they are both well loved in their community. Both come from high classes in society and have never wanted for anything in their life. Mr. Knightley is actually Emma's brother-in-law, since his brother married her sister. Thus, the two are almost always together, considering how Mr. Knightley is constantly at their house. Emma enjoys being around him, but it is not until the end of the story, when Harriet starts to develop a fancy for him, that Emma realizes she loves him. This leads her to break her views on never marrying. The two are both of higher social rank with no want of money. The novel tells us early on, Emma Woodhouse, rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition. Throughout the book, it is known that Mr. Knightley enjoys the same social rank as Emma. Moreover, the two are in love. Mr. Knightley tells her that he had been in love with her since she was 13 years old, and then says he had been in love with her and had been jealous of another man who loved her. Emma then admits that she too loved him, and says she was his own Emma, by hand and word, when they returned to the house. This match is very successful, considering their dispositions. Their wedding takes place on the last page of the book and says, "The predictions of the small band of true friends who witnessed the ceremony were fully answered in the perfect happiness of the union." Thus, these two end happily, and everyone is overjoyed when they marry. They are the key example in the story of the balance between same social status and love. Therefore, they end up happy, and their marriage is most assuredly ideal to everyone else in the story. All of these examples come to show that Jane Austen was trying to convey to the reader that love and social rank are vital when it came to an ideal marriage in 19th century England. Mr. and Mrs. Elton, alongside Jane Fairfax and Frank Churchill, serve as examples of how the lack of this balance ended poorly, whereas the examples of Mr. and Mrs. Weston, Harriet Smith and Robert Martin, and Emma and Mr. Knightley are all used to show how the balance of both love and social rank do end ideally. In a match like that of Mr. Knightley and Emma, it is only successful through this balance. When the stability of this balance was abandoned, it resulted in an unsuccessful match such as that of Mr. and Mrs. Elton. Altogether, this is a story of trial and error. Some of the couple's matches were successful, others not as much. This concludes my presentation. Thank you. Here is my works cited page for my images. And now for a little bit about me. Sorry if you hear the rain in the background, but I can't do anything about that. As you all know, my name is McKenna Davis, and I'm a 16-year-old missionary in Puerto Cortes, Honduras. I have lived in Central America since I was 6 years old, both in Guatemala and Honduras. I have 3 sisters and my parents. I have 2 dogs, Rottweilers, and 12 cats, although they're all outside cats. My hobbies include a lot of reading and also studying psychology because I'm fascinated by it. And I'm also a huge extrovert, and I have people over at the house, so that is a big hobby of mine as well. I want to study counseling when I am older, and I plan on moving to the States to do so. And that's about all the information on me. I also live by the beach, but I'm also very close to the mountains. So, yeah.